quality drop.
Arsenal have been doing bits as well. They have signed Martín Zubimendi from Real Sociedad. That news is official, and it looks as though they are very close to getting Viktor Gyökeres from Sporting as well. As we know, one of their main priorities this summer has been bringing in a striker, and it looks as though Gyökeres could be that man. Jules, what more can you tell us about this deal?
Yeah, that's right, Kay. This is moving forward very well. We talked about it a little bit the last time I was on the show, which was maybe on Sunday night, I think it was, or we Sunday today. I can't remember really, but a few days ago, and then we wrote it on the website as well. Talks between the player and Arsenal pretty much all done. Between the two clubs, which was always going to be quite difficult because we explained there was a release clause for Gyökeres, 100 million euros, but then he kind of agreed a gentleman agreement with the club saying that he could leave for less than that, around the 60 to 70 million euros fee, which they are about to agree. The structure is still a little bit up in the air, whether it's 60 plus 10, 65 plus 5 or 7, some bonuses that should be easily reachable. That's what Sporting wants. So we're not just there yet, but it should not be too long now before Viktor Gyökeres is officially an Arsenal player.
That could change things very much for Arsenal this year, Craig.
Well, Mikel Arteta hopes so. It's a kind of an admittance, and right or wrong, that the initial plan didn't really work for him and hasn't taken them to the level that they needed, which was signing Kai Havertz, ironically, to start with, to play in the midfield as a midfield three, which didn't really work, and with Gabriel Jesus up front, and then he was shuffled Havertz up top and did a decent enough job at times with his movement and his work rate and the odd goal, but not enough to get Arsenal near enough to City or over the line, and certainly not enough to get anywhere close to Liverpool last year. So I think the club realising that, and I think have done for quite some time, there was a sort of softball bid for Ollie Watkins in January last year that I don't think was ever going anywhere. But Benjamin Sesko's been on the list, Gyökeres has been on the list. I suppose Alexander Isak was a player that Arsenal had looked at amongst others. But Gyökeres seems to be the one that the deal was going to be slightly easier to do. Scored a barrel load of goals in Portugal. He's more of a sort of penalty box striker, big guy, big physical enough guy, naturals goal scorer, hustle bustle kind of player, a little bit of everything. So, if he gets this deal done along with the Zubimendi deal, in the last 2 or 3 years, they really have backed this manager, haven't they? With transfer fees and transfer funds and recruitment. And I think this just piles the pressure on for Arsenal to go this season and deliver.
Is this the final piece of the puzzle, these players coming in?
Gyökeres, I saw a lot at Coventry, and he's a player, and you described him quite well in terms of that he's a bit of everything. He was at his best when I saw him play, when balls were rolled into him around the box and he'd twist and turn. He could score goals by himself. He didn't just always play backwards. He'd try and turn defenders, roll defenders, get shots away. He's a good box player as well. He'll find that bit of space in the box. So I think it's a good signing. Now, we do a lot of La Liga, and Craig has seen a lot of La Liga. You have as well. I've watched Zubimendi on many, many occasions, and I've only ever seen him really dominate a game once, and that was in the final of the European Championships when he came on as a substitute. I don't understand what all the fuss is about with Zubimendi. He's a nice footballer.
Tidy.
He's tidy. He's a nice footballer. It's Jorginho of 5 years ago. He'll get the ball, pass it square, keep it all flowing. But I don't think I've ever seen him play a forward pass that's caused a problem.
But going back to Gyökeres quickly, I know he had this spell at Coventry. His game has to have taken to whether it's the league in Portugal or not, and he's played in the Champions League and all that sort of stuff, so he's playing at a much better level. The Portuguese league is not the Premier League, we know that, so it is going to be more difficult, but his game has to have gone from a much different level from his time at Coventry to where he's been, particularly in the last 12 months.
If you're an Arsenal fan, are you not looking across at Liverpool and looking at Núñez? But Núñez was the same at Benfica. He scored a barrel load of goals. And on paper, Núñez was a great signing for Liverpool. As Gyökeres looks like, on paper, a great signing for Arsenal. The question is,
why when he was at Coventry, why when he was at Swansea, did managers not go, I tell you what, this player can go the distance? Why did he have to go to Portugal to get all those goals and prove himself as a top-class player to get back into the Premier League? Why didn't people see him at Coventry?
I'd have to go back and look at the Núñez, which I haven't got, the Núñez figures. I do think, I might be wrong.
They're not as good as...
But Darwin Núñez, I think...
But you can see my argument,
yeah.
though, right?
No, I know, but coming into that season before he went to Liverpool, he had a standout season. I think if you look beyond that, his goal-scoring record wasn't like blisteringly good, Núñez, but then he did have that really good season that put him on the radar. I think Gyökeres has been a little bit more consistent.
Well, he's had 2 great seasons, hasn't he? I mean, he's almost scored a goal a game in the last 2 seasons.
But you have to, if you're an Arsenal fan, you have to be excited by this because you're looking for a goal scorer. On the face of it, you've got a goal scorer. You plug in some other areas. There's probably going to be at least another signing, maybe 2. They're linked with a couple of other players. So, and it's pretty early, and one of the worrying things is for any club is that it's the middle of August, the season started, and you're still chasing around trying to get this player.
When Jesus came, Arteta said we don't really need a centre forward. When Jesus came from Manchester City, for the first 6 months, he was absolutely magnificent and took Arsenal to the top of the table. And that's when they were playing at their very best. And then he got injured and didn't play quite so well. So maybe this is the final product.
Well, let's take a look at how that Arsenal team might be shaping up now. Jules, we've tasked you with putting together an 11 of how Arsenal could fare this season with these players in that 11. Talk us through it.
It's pretty straightforward, really. There's just nothing. Zubimendi would come in and replace Partey, and Gyökeres would come in and replace Havertz. So, whoever finished the season there when he was injured. The rest is pretty normal, pretty straightforward. Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Luis Kelly, or you could put Calafiori at left back if you want. That midfield of Odegaard, Rice will be the same, just with that Zubimendi as the holding midfielder to try to control the game. And then for now, Martinelli at left winger, but we know they're also looking at a left winger. So it might not be Martinelli if they get the player they want for that left-hand side, and then Gyökeres centrally and Bukayo Saka on the right. So there won't be any tactical revolution. There won't be any twist and things that we might see from Arteta tactically, I think, both in terms of personnel and tactically. It's just very straightforward, that 4-3-3, and those 2 players for now just fit perfectly in that system.
Sorry. I was going to say, there's been talk today about Madueke. I don't know, is there any truth in that, Jules?
Yeah, I think Arteta has liked him for a while now. Even last summer, he was already kind of like monitoring a little bit the situation. The thing is, Madueke, as a left footer, best position is on the right. So he would come as a plan B for Saka, or the guy coming after Saka. You don't spend 50 million on somebody that would be a sub for somebody else. So then you can play him on the left, but Madueke as a left footer on the left, I don't think has the same impact than he has on the right-hand side. 1, the right-hand side is his favourite position. 2, he can come inside onto his left foot like a lot of left footer who play on the right do. So I'm not really sure where Madueke would fit. But then, yeah, of course, you can play him on the left-hand side even as a left footer.
So is it Madueke or Eze, or could it be Madueke and Eze? Because
one of the 2, I think.
Yeah, because that really would be. Because we were talking about Eze. I know he's not in this conversation till now.
How does that make them better?
Who?
Madueke. How does he make them better? You're going to play him on the wrong side, and what's going to happen to Wanyeri? I thought Wanyeri was the backup for Saka.
Okay,
so
hold that thought.
I actually thought Eze would be. Sorry, I actually thought Eze as a signing would be more of a push for Martin Odegaard than he would have been for Martinelli. At times we were critical of Odegaard last year, who is a big. I mean, he's the captain. He's a big player for them. He's in a big position, and at times in the bigger games, particularly last year, he had his poorer games. And I felt that the signing of Eze would fill both roles potentially, because we've talked about him. He's not a guy who likes to stand on the wide position. He likes to come in and play in those holes. He likes to play passes. He likes to get turned, and he's very good at finishing as well. His final third is very, very good. And I thought that signing could probably cover a couple of roles where he could supplement the wider area if need be, or if Martin Odegaard. Because everybody's droppable. Don't matter if you're the captain of Arsenal. If you're not doing it week in, week out, and you're going for a title and you're going for the Champions League, you're droppable. And I think he needs somebody to push him in that number 10 role.
Where does that leave Moreno then? I mean, so
as a squad player coming off the bench, which a very good one.
So the 11 we just showed you. What I was going to ask you, Frank, is if this is a Premier League title-winning team for you.
I think it's possible if the new signing click on. They can pretend to be contenders, and with the depth that they have on the bench, it can be good. We all know that we want to see if they sign Gyökeres, if he can score goals, because that was the main concern. I just want to answer to say something about about what Robo said about the fact that in Coventry or Swansea, he didn't show the level he should have been to interest some of the other team. But don't forget that Mo Salah or De Bruyne came for Chelsea and didn't show their talent before going back somewhere else.
Sorry, Frank, I wasn't saying he
some
didn't
years
show. I wasn't saying he didn't show his talent. I'm saying other coaches or other scouts or other managers didn't see him or didn't make the decision on him. And that's when they should have made the decision because they'd have got him £30 million cheaper.
Okay, I thought it was more because of his performances that you were saying.
No, he was good.
But,
he was good for Coventry.
I hear you. Okay.
I mean,
yeah, it's what I thought, and he should have been picked before. But otherwise, yeah, I think if Gyökeres score goals, you have definitely a team who can be a contender.
You could easily make an argument and say, yeah, that team could win the title. Of course they could win the title. They could have won it over the last, they couldn't, not last year, because they were out the race. The year before, they could have won it. It just fell a bit short. You could put the Liverpool team up and say, yeah, that team will win the title. You put the City team up and say, well, maybe so. Maybe there's a couple of areas there that they still are worried. Any of these teams could win the title. What they had last year was some injuries and some underperformances, and obviously they lacked a real goal-scoring threat. So absolutely.
That team, if they all play to a certain standard that they're capable of, that team absolutely has got a chance of winning the Premier League.
And there's a much better bench when you saw the players that were down there. Suddenly, if they want to make changes, the changes are better than they were last year.
Well, you look at the changes we made last year. Some of them, I mean, one of them, Raheem Sterling. Yeah, that was just a bust as a loan signing, wasn't it? He was on the bench. He played now and again. He came on now and again. I mean, can you remember anything that he did? So it's been hugely important to strengthen a bit. It's one of the things Liverpool did particularly well. When you looked at the Liverpool bench last year, Arne Slot was able to go and make changes that made a difference. And I don't think Mikel Arteta...
Go back a couple of years with Mikel Arteta when he had Willian. He brought Willian to the club, and the only place he failed really was at Arsenal because he then went to Fulham and became a good player again. So he struggled at Arsenal for some reason.
So, Jules, in your 11, there's no Kai Havertz, right?
No, there's no Kai Havertz for now. I mean, if you spend that money on Gyökeres, he's your number 9. Then with Havertz, the versatility is interesting because he can be another option as a number 9. You can even, if you're behind, if you're losing, you can tweak your system and Havertz comes in and play higher up as a second striker if you want. With Gyökeres, he can play in midfield where we've said enough time with Craig, especially on the show, that originally, Kai Havertz was signed to be the Granit Xhaka replacement, to play in that number 8 on the left-hand side with Rice deeper and Odegaard on the right. That was the idea at the beginning. Didn't turn out that way, didn't really work out. So then he did a decent job, as we've been saying, as a number 9. But Havertz offers you so much versatility that I think as a first sub, he'd be perfect. And then there's games where he will start. There will be so many games next season for Arsenal that he will have enough game time. It's not a problem. But for now, Gyökeres will have to be the standout striker and starter.
I don't think there's any Arsenal fan going round going, whoa, I think we need to squeeze Kai Havertz in somewhere. But I do agree. You know, and it's a lot of money, 60 million or whatever it was. But, you know, Kai Havertz, I think, for Arsenal, for a potential championship winning side, is a really good player to have on the bench for all the reasons that Jules mentioned, is that he's versatile. He'll get his quota of goals without being a natural goal scorer. He works hard. He's got a great attitude. So he's a good player to play in games that you maybe want to give somebody a rest or bring on second half when you're struggling and you need something a little bit different, or even put 2 up front.
But when you look at the overall...
If he's happy with that. If he's happy with that.
Yeah. If you look at Havertz as his overall picture, there's a reason why he went to Arsenal. Because he didn't do well enough at Chelsea. Yeah. You know, when Chelsea bought him for a lot of money, he was going to be the star player. Everybody said he was one of the best players in the Bundesliga. He didn't really do it for Chelsea. I know they say he scored the winning goal in the Champions League final. Yeah, of course, great. But overall, his performances for Chelsea weren't good enough.
Anything else you want to say about this Arsenal side, Jules, seeing as though you've got such a close eye and a pulse on them?
No, just let's see what happens on that left-hand side. And we said the other day as well, they will have to sell before being able to buy Eze or Madueke, whoever they want. But it would be interesting. I think this is the last piece of that jigsaw. If you look at that team again, just to finish on that team, Martinelli is probably the one, if you can get an upgrade on Martinelli, a more established player, maybe a better player, simply, then I think you are even in a better position and Martinelli becomes yet another really good option to come off the bench.
Let's get to Zubimendi then. Obviously, Stewart touched on what he did and Craig as well. Let me stay with you, Jules, on this one, because obviously Arteta knows that he wants this player. He knows him well, and now he's got his hands on him. What is he going to do with him? What's the hope?
The hope is that holding role, really, and controlling, dictating the pace, which is what he's very good at in Spain. Can he do it in the Premier League with more physicality, with more intensity, with more rhythm? Nobody knows. We don't know. Arteta doesn't know. Zubimendi himself doesn't know. Obviously, the hope at 26 is that he's such a smart, intelligent player that he will adapt quickly to the way Arsenal play to start with, which is different to what Real Sociedad have been doing when he was there. And then obviously, more importantly, maybe adapt to the Premier League and the challenges that he will face in that league, because he's always been used to one thing, being Real Sociedad has been his club forever. There hasn't been even another club. So it's not even if he'd like been from Real Sociedad to another better Spanish club. It's just Real Sociedad, and it's a massive jump to the Premier League, to Arsenal. So let's see how quickly he settles. They wanted him ready for the trip that they have in Spain. They have a pre-season little few days in south of Spain first, and then they go on the proper tour in Southeast Asia. They wanted him there for that. He would be there. He would get to know everybody. And then everybody at the club is hoping that he would hit the ground running straight away.
I suppose these are the risks you take when you talk about whether they can deliver what they've been doing in their respective leagues in the Premier League when it comes to these players, including Gyökeres as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit with Robbo with Zubimendi. I mean, I'm glad we put a picture up of this guy, because I was trying to remember what he looked like. You know, he's not... To me, I've seen the guy when things are going well, when they've got plenty of possession, he's on the ball and he's facilitating and distributing it, and he's making little passes and cutting things out. I don't remember seeing him doing anything when his team have been up against it.
He's not dynamic. That's, you know, if he plays the holding role, and I talked about Jorginho when he first came to Chelsea, and I wasn't a big fan of Jorginho, and he'll keep the ball quite nicely, but I'm doing the commentary, you know, on the La Liga, and we've done it about 10 times last year, and I'll have a little joke with my commentator, how many times is he going to pass it forward? And I'll make little notes. He hardly ever passes it forward. There's no penetrative passes. There's no goal-scoring passes. He just keeps the thing flowing. There's lots of players that can do that, and you're paying a lot of money for a player that can just keep things moving along.
But
maybe he hopes he's just going to be the glue.
Maybe.
The glue's the back four and the pass out from the fullback to get the move flowing and to allow Declan Rice and Odegaard to go and push a bit. Well, certainly Odegaard will, but Declan Rice, who we saw it more and more last year, just becoming more dynamic, and he can do both those roles. And just to give him a little bit of an insurance policy to go and be this guy who busts into the box as well. That's going to be a big role for Zubimendi, because Rice, if you're giving Rice and Odegaard the licence to go and get forward, and you're going to have a lot of possession, then you're going to have your head switched on in front of that Arsenal back four for the counter-attack. So it's a big role for this player coming in. He's certainly tidy enough on the ball. Whenever you watch Real Sociedad, he never ever stands out like a sore thumb, right? But maybe that's not a bad thing. He's just tidy under the radar, and he lets other people get on with the job.
The question is going to be what you were talking about there. If you're going to let Odegaard get forward and you're going to have Rice getting forward, the one thing that you know, Arsenal are going to pen teams in. And so the biggest problem City have got right now is when teams get out, they don't have anybody in the middle of the park to stop them. I don't see how this guy stops him. I don't see how he gets...
He's no more athletic, I don't think, than
Jorginho
was.
He's not quick around the field.
He's not the same as Rodri. He's not going to be as good defensively as Rodri for Manchester City.
That's my problem with it.
And you've got to be, in my view, if you're a holding midfielder, even if you're good on the ball, you have to be a good athlete. You've got to cover fullbacks. You've got to cover the midfield players that have gone forward. You might have to drop in between your centre halves at times. I don't see him do that. No.
What do you think of what the guys are saying, Frank?
Well, I was more positive before the show than I am now, listening to the guys. You know, that guy won the Euro, plays for Spain, is going to sign for Arsenal for 60 million. And when I hear somebody who don't know, he's under the radar, he's not under the radars, he's in the shade, he doesn't do vertical passes. The guy seems to be completely useless, so I want to give a little bit more credit to the product. So I won't be as judgmental as the guys have been, where they know him better than me. But hopefully, you know, if he plays for Spain, if he's going to play for Arsenal, he will have some influence into the game. Otherwise, of course, that's going to be useless to spend 60 million for a player who only do horizontal passes.
Jules, what do you make of these Jorginho comparisons?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with Robo. I think, yeah, that you can make that comparison. I think if it's a player that Real Madrid wanted to sign and hijack the deal to Arsenal that's been agreed a while ago, and if Manchester City looked at him as well to sign him when Rodri got injured, there's a player there too. But the question, outside of the fact that of his profile and the defensive aspect in transition when Arsenal don't have the ball, because Arsenal we often have 65-70% of the ball in the Premier League still, is how quickly or how can he, not even quickly, can he adapt to the Premier League? This is the big question. He might do it and surprise us, or some of us. He might struggle a little bit at the beginning, but I think the most important, and we said that the other day as well, for Gyökeres, for Zubimendi, for whoever comes in that left wing position, it doesn't matter. They will have to be ready straight away. Arsenal cannot wait 6 months for Zubimendi to be ready to play in the Premier League, because by then, as we said the other day, the title will be lost, the Champions League might be lost as well. So Zubimendi has to be ready straight away, and that adaptation will have to be really quick and will have to be very good. And again, I just don't think he's got much time for it. So let's see how quickly he can adapt, because you can't wait that long for him to get ready. It doesn't work like this.
Just to be clear, we're not saying that he's not a great football player. We're not saying he's not a good player. But we're talking about Arsenal. The question here is, does this Arsenal team win the Premier League? We're talking about winning the Premier League here. And so the points that we're pulling out basically are, if he does those things that certainly I'm not sure he can do, if he does them, then it makes the chances of Arsenal winning the Premier League even better. All I'm saying is, to win the Premier League, what he's going to have to do defensively, if he's not capable of it, that could be the difference between them not winning the Premier League. So we're not saying he's not a good player. We're just saying, to take that extra step, he has to do certain things. But we don't know whether he's going to do it.
The difference between Arsenal and City, though, is, and when City got exploited last year many, many times, was they really didn't have much of a structure as the season unravelled. They had no structure in the middle of the park. They had no structure generally in their defensive unit, and the back four just was a shambles in the end, the two full-back positions. You could throw the centre-halves in there as well. The one thing Zubimendi and others have got going for them is that Arsenal have a really good structure about how they press and how they then sometimes set off. And when he is struggling, if he is struggling, he's got arguably one of the best back fours in European football that's behind him. And also, I think Declan Rice, and I think we all agree, he's been well worth the money.
Absolutely.
For Arsenal, what they paid for him. There's just a heck of a player in there. You know, he's not... All right, he scored those 2 goals in the Champions League. But generally, he's not going to do the overhead kicks and all that sort of stuff. But generally, everything he does defensively and offensively is very good. And he's been around the block enough times now that if he sees a player coming in and he's having a hard time, or he's getting swamped in the middle of the park, he'll just sit in there, Declan Rice, and say, listen, I got you back for the meantime until we're in a comfortable position. So it's not like he's going to be in there on his own. Yeah. He's got Odegaard, who's an attacking player, and he's got Declan Rice, who's one of the best around, not just in England, but in Europe, at doing both sides of the game.
Arteta thinks he's got a mixture of all three with these 3 players. He's got the dynamism with Rice. He's got, hopefully, the passing ability of Odegaard, and he's hoping the continuity of Zubimendi just picking out the passes and keeping everything going. So that's what he's hoping for, that those 3 mixtures work really well